To our afternoon speakers. Very, very pleased to introduce our second group of speakers for the afternoon. My name is Ravinder. I'm on the board of the San Francisco Vegan Society. Thank you all for joining us today. It's a tremendous opportunity to meet other vegans and also non-vegans who are learning about being a vegan. So please take a look around and tell your friends about this wonderful event. So I'm very pleased to introduce Leah Wilbourn today from In Defense of Animals, a vegan advocacy and humane washing. She's been a vegan for 11 years and an animal rights activist for about 7 years. Leah is a certified plant-based nutrition. She has a certified in plant-based nutrition from the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies at Cornell University. Her deepest calling is for being a voice for defenseless animals, and she loves helping to inspire others to speak up for animals. So please give it up for Leah Wilbourn.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. All right, thank you for being here on the very first time that the San Francisco Veg Fest is called the World Vegan Fest, which is very exciting to me. So it's great timing that this is the first year that I'm here giving a talk. All right, so yes, I'm Leah. I'm the farmed animals campaigner for In Defense of Animals, which is an animal protection organization. They've been at it for over 40 years. They are technically based in San Rafael, California, in the North Bay. They're all over the world. So I'm going to be getting into vegan advocacy and many different issues involving such. So let us begin. We'll be getting into vegetarian to vegan, the humane scam, social pressure and communicating the message, and what does vegan even mean? Is it important to really define that and get a clear sense of what vegan really means and where the origin of the word? Progressing the animal rights movement, how do we do that? And ways to get involved, and there will be a short video at the end. All right, so the idealized fantasy. This is kind of what we all know. This is what we've all seen growing up. Certainly what I saw and was raised with. And even to this day, my dad is not vegan, but he's been more and more convinced by me. But his social pressure has to do with his wife. So there's that. This is something that we all deal with. I didn't know any vegans when I first went vegan. So being normal and fitting in, right? I mean, I think that's something that's really not talked about much when people give their objections to being vegan. So much of the resistance, I think, is the feeling ostracized and the difficulty in speaking up, and the cognitive dissonance, which is, you know, the conflict between our values and our ethics and being an animal lover while also paying for products that torment and kill animals and then having to shut that down, right? Because it makes us so uncomfortable. So usually when people, I'll just tell you now, when people ask me, why did you go vegan? I was just sitting around and realized, you know, I'm just living an everyday life, and I thought to myself, I just have too many friends. Yeah. That's actually Preacher Lawson. He's a vegan comedian, came up with that. But I love that because it really acknowledges that when you go vegan, we're very aware, right? We're very aware. Boy, am I going to lose some friends? Does this mean I'm going to be, you know, just the odd man out constantly at dinner parties? A little bit, sometimes. I didn't know any vegans when I went vegan. I think I mentioned that before. So, moving on. I was vegetarian for many years, and yet I didn't quite realize all of the other implications to even being vegetarian, that oftentimes the egg industry and the dairy industry is in fact just as bad, just as cruel and horrific, if not worse, than the meat industry. And I didn't know that animals are all killed for their milk and eggs. And of course, vegetarian is still a little bit more socially acceptable. Every restaurant you go to, vegetarian options. And the thing about vegetarian is it does not address all the other ways that animals are exploited and oppressed, including, you know, for fashion, for transportation, research, zoos, you know, clothing, There's so many ways that animals are exploited, and most people don't realize, like for wool, they're all slaughtered. So, moving on. This photo might be familiar to some of us if you're an activist. That's a photo from Dominion, which I highly recommend everybody watch. Dominion.org, just search Dominion on YouTube. It's an animal rights documentary, and it shows the truth of what really happens to animals throughout the world who are being exploited. I happened upon glass walls on YouTube. I'd already been vegetarian, and I just came upon Paul McCartney, who was narrating this short film, and I knew that he had been vegetarian. He always loved animals and was speaking up for them. And it turned out to be a PETA video. It was six minutes long, and it completely opened up my eyes and changed my world. I couldn't sleep for many days. I'd wake up crying. I couldn't believe that I'd paid for this. And then I just started looking into who are these people that are speaking up for animals. Wow. And I really was in deep admiration of them. And I just started learning more and more about the issues. And one of the big issues, one of the first things that got me involved in speaking up for animals was I live in Marin County now. I'm a San Francisco native. But there's this Point Reyes Tule elk controversy and debacle that's happening up there. The dairy ranches have, fenced up the area for the endangered Tule elk so that they can't even forage. They've been starving. And this is insane. This is crazy. So I went and I got a little bit involved, and that was one of the first times that I just raised my hand because I was noticing that so many people weren't aware that, no, actually it was the dairy industry that was causing this. And so I just felt the need to let everybody there know. And that was when I first started speaking up. These are some of the beautiful animals that I stepped out of the car on my way back and tried to approach, spoke with a very soft voice in my feminine sound. And as soon as they noticed that I wasn't somebody that was coming to hurt them or boss them around, they started coming over to me. These are the dairy hutches that I could see off in the distance behind the biohazard signs that they put up to try to make sure that no activists or no people investigate what's really going on behind the scenes. And a beautiful mother that I had a connection with, we hung out for a while, and she was peeking her nose through at me, and she wandered over at one point. I could tell it seemed like she was trying to get me to go where she was going, and she nudged her nose to the little lock on the gate, like, are you the one that's going to get me out of here? More mass killing. So the H5N1 virus, once I joined In Defense of Animals as the farmed animals campaigner, I started learning about, and now we've been doing campaigns about and alerts about the H5N1 bird flu virus. And of course, this is a problem that's been created by animal agribusiness, keeping farmed animals in extreme confinement, leading to the ventilation shutdown, which is this horrific, very standard way now that they have the thousands of animals all crammed into one shed, and they basically seal up the windows and the ventilation system so that the animals suffocate, and then they turn up the heat. So as they're suffocating, they're basically roasting to death. Thousands of animals, okay? This is what's happening to chickens, and it happened to pigs in 2020. Over 200,000 pigs were killed this way. And yet, people are outraged about that, but this is the egg industry every day. This is the little baby chicks of the mother hens, and before they're separated between the males and the females, all those male baby chicks will be tossed into giant macerators, basically blenders, ground up alive. This is what happens in the egg industry. And don't fall for the free-range, cage-free egg labels, okay? That's, speaking of, humane washing. So this is an alert that we just recently did at IDA to expose Pittman Family Farms. Mary's Chicken is one of the brands of Pittman Family Farms, and they, again, free-range. This is the actual footage, just some of the photos. We have a video in our alert of what the animals are really going through in these farms, and these were photos of them on the truck on the way to the slaughterhouse. So this is something that there's so much talk about factory farming. And yes, 99% of animal products that we buy come from factory farms. But when we spend a little too much time focusing only on factory farming and that's the root of the problem, when instead the root of the problem is much deeper than that, right? So what we risk sometimes, if we're only talking about factory farming, is what this meme is all about. I'd like to tell you about how bad factory farming is. I'm so glad I spoke to you. From now on, I'll only buy humanely raised products, right? But wait, all animal culture is wrong. Animal agriculture is wrong. Humanely raised is not better, etc. And then the person doesn't hear that. But if the advocates aren't saying that, if they're only focusing on factory farms, they're not addressing the actual slaughter itself. And so that's how we run the risk when we're talking only about factory farms. And of course, the idea of small, local, organic, people started making money off of the eggs and off of the dairy. Supply and demand, people started buying more of the local family farmer, which is what led to demand increasing and factory farms in the first place. So yay for Measure J in Sonoma County, which is aiming to ban the largest factory farms, but we also need to be speaking up. It's not, small farms are not better. Small farms are not the alternative. It's all wrong. Perfect example of humane washing. This is up in Petaluma. This is the Clover headquarters. Look at these hilarious cartoon characters. Moon River Dairy Godmother. Male dairy calf about to be slaughtered the next day. That's the reality of the dairy industry. The beautiful mothers in the slaughterhouse. This photo here on my left, both of these photos were taken by Farm Transparency Project, and that shows you the terror. The mothers are trying to escape. They're in the chute about to be slaughtered. Prop 12 in California effectively banned what's known as gestation crates, which confines mother pigs in these horrifically tiny crates where they can't stand up, they can't turn around. So much money and resources and time was put into passing Prop 12. The only thing about that is that it's just really just for a few more inches of space. And again, if you're not advocating for the problem with all of it, it can run the risk of making people feel better. This is not a gestation crate, this photo. This is a farrowing crate. So the irony, all that work, all that time, and these are still the conditions that pigs are kept in. And of course, there's practically no oversight or enforcement. And it can be overturned with a strike of the pen. So legalized cruelty, the standard practices in all animal farming, which is what I'm trying to get across and what my organization is trying to get across to the public, is that forcible impregnation, sexual violation. Most people don't know that male animals are masturbated in order to get their semen, then forcibly impregnate the females. The females give birth just like a human mother. The cows carry their babies for 9 months. The male babies are taken away. All the males and all the mothers, all of them are slaughtered at just a fraction of their natural lifespan. So, and the big issue here is that we don't need to do it. It's all for unnecessary optional products. So if we can survive and thrive without animal products, which so many of these beautiful vendors and speakers are proving and has been proven around the world, what are we doing? And we need to speak up more about this. And again, this is the slaughter. This is the message that we're trying to get to the people. These are gas chambers. This is the most common way that pigs are killed in the United States and across the world. They scream and thrash and fight for their lives to get out. They don't fall asleep like the industry tries to convince you, okay? They suffocate, they scream, and the gas burns their mucous membranes. Very common things that, I said this, maybe a little less suffering if I buy free-range eggs, that's better, right? And these are all things that we hear. It's a journey, which again, that can be just another form of spiritual bypassing or denial, not wanting to think about it. Well, I'm doing some good, aren't I? culture, tradition, history, these are all things that, you usually hear as an objection, and yet those are excuses that have been used to justify all kinds of atrocities throughout history, slavery, subjugation of women. So, and to realize that this is a justice movement, right? This isn't about what we're eating. This is a justice movement, and if we think about it as a justice movement, we need to address it as the same urgency. And all other successful justice movements throughout the world were successful because they demanded their liberation. They didn't ask for, African Americans didn't ask for more comfortable chains, right? Women, when they were being second-class citizens, didn't ask for prettier aprons, right? We asked for equal treatment, and all animals deserve the basic respect that cats and dogs have. Speaking of, this is my dear friend, Nick, one of my most favorite precious beings in the world, and then little piglet. What's the difference, right? So that brings us to speciesism, which is basically another form of oppression. It represents two different kinds. There's cats and dogs and our companion animals, and treating some animals with respect, and those are animals that deserve to live. And then the other animals, otherizing people and animals, and those don't matter, those are objects, don't think about them so we can use them. So again, it's all might equals right mentality. It's a human supremacy mentality and mindset that we have to start chipping away at with the public and speaking more about this. To objectify, turn them into objects. Are they something though? Are they a thing, or are they someone? It's very simple. If you ask anyone, is your dog or cat a something or a someone? If they're a someone, they don't deserve any of this. So when we examine injustice, we must examine it from the victim's point of view, right? Not from the point of view of the oppressor, not from the point of view of it's inconvenient, right? I like the taste. That's all about humans. And even when we talk about plant-based and diet, it's wonderful, we have to talk about that. But again, if we're only talking about that, that's a human rights issue. That's about us, right? It's not about the animals. So we must focus on what are the things we have in common. We all have a will to live. We all feel pain. We all can suffer. We all want to be with our families and our friends and enjoy our lives. And all animals have the same desires and wants and don't want to suffer. So then we come to, what does vegan even mean? And it's very simple. It goes back to the 50s. It's been complicated a little bit. But the principle that humans should live without exploiting animals. That's it. That addresses everything. It addresses the underlying issue, not just factory farming, not just how we treat them while they're being exploited. There's no humane way to exploit or kill someone who doesn't want to be exploited or killed. So a vegan is someone who rejects the idea of animal exploitation, right? That's how I prefer to talk about it, because if we talk about a vegan as someone who just doesn't eat animal products, we understand the difference, right? And why it's a justice movement. We must talk about and ask for the world we want. If we aren't willing to talk about the world we want animals to be liberated, right? We don't want them to suffer. So the underlying cause of suffering is the exploitation. So we can have individual and systemic change, but we must address the individual change, right? That's where it begins, is if you have access to a grocery store and plant foods, you can be vegan, usually very, very easily. So we must progress the message without compromising it by saying yes to small farms, or, well, one step at a time. No. If that were you in the slaughterhouse next, how would you want someone to speak up for you? Initiative IP28 in Oregon. Please, everybody check that out. It's groundbreaking. It's going to be hopefully on the ballot in 2026, and it would actually remove exemptions of animal cruelty for all animals, so that the protections that companion animals have now would just simply expand to include all animals, and it would effectively ban the breeding, injury, neglect, breeding, sexual violation, and killing of animals. So even if it doesn't pass the first time, and the founders are they're not naive, they know most likely it won't pass the first time. But the women's suffrage movement, they did the same thing. They demanded their liberation. They tried to get it on the ballot. It didn't pass, and after the 5th time, it passed, right? So the whole time, they're educating people, they're raising awareness. This is just from one of the protests that we did with In Defense of Animals and Free from Harm, which is an incredible animal rights advocacy organization. This was in Sacramento, with this mantra that we're trying to gain momentum across the country to confront the power holders. We confronted the California Secretary of Agriculture with this line: stop the animal ag bailouts, fund a slaughter-free plant-based food system. That's a message that the power holders need to start hearing from the public, and also helping to transition farmers. We don't want farmers to be out of a job. We just want them to change the product line, right? So supporting ways to help them evolve their job and stay in their job. So Transformation Project is a really great organization that's doing that. So it's not food for thought. This is the main message that I would love to get across to everybody. The animals can't wait. If that was your dog, your cat, how urgently would you want to be speaking up for them? Would you want other people to be speaking up for them? We must put ourselves in their position, okay? And we must normalize the word vegan. It's simply being against the exploitation of animals. It's common sense, it's common decency. There's nothing extreme about that, okay? Veganism is a moral urgency, and this is a message we're going to be having a expert activist panel online in November that I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Faraz Harsini, who has already started animal rights chapters, and his goal is to get animal rights chapters and vegan chapters in every university in the country. And they stand out just like AV does. They have footage, they're talking to students, they're having conversations, they have plant-based doctors giving presentations, and these are signs and posters that you're seeing all over these universities. So they want no student to walk through a university and not see this message. And we must focus on why, not how. Like, how do I go vegan? Oh, I need a coach. No, you don't. But if you do, Linda, the vegan mentor, is wonderful. She's right here. Anytime anyone gives you that argument, it's too hard, simply say, is it harder for you, or is it harder for the victims? Is it harder for the animals? Would you rather, have somebody say, it's a little bit inconvenient, so I'm not going to change, but good luck, going through that experience in the slaughterhouse? No. And also any objections that you hear people say, what we do to animals is what's extreme. Speaking up for them is not. Don't let anybody tell you that it is. And most people don't change in their comfort zones. So I didn't either. I was very uncomfortable when I came across the footage. It changed me forever. So we must be willing to have conversations with people and tell them the truth of what we know, and also on occasion show them the truth. Because usually that's the only thing that really gets to their heart and their gut. They're only thinking about food and thinking about how it can benefit them, and they're not seeing themselves in that position, and they're not connecting with the animal. Most likely they could become another ex-vegan, right? Once you get it in your heart, you'll never go back. Never be afraid to do what's right, especially if the well-being of a person or an animal is at stake. Society's punishments are small compared to the wounds we inflict on our soul when we look the other way. Martin Luther King, it applies to animals. It applies to all oppressed beings. And animals are the most ignored, abused, and killed beings throughout history. Most people ignore them, but don't be one of them. Please speak up for them. So just a few Dominion Earthlings. Those are both documentaries, incredible award-winning documentaries that are free on YouTube right now. I highly recommend everybody go on there and watch it. You'll never be the same. Dairy is scary. It's only 5 minutes, and you'll never want to consume dairy again. It's presented by this very attractive, flashy young woman, and it looks like a commercial at first. Just tell all your friends. Just watch Dairy is Scary. It's 5 minutes, and it'll get the message across. And then just what I started doing, I didn't know really anybody, and I just started seeking out other vegans. I went on Facebook, looked up vegan Facebook groups. The more you start meeting other vegans and other animal rights folks, the more you start feeling like, oh, okay, I can start doing this. I can start speaking up. And think about 50 years ago, there were no dairy alternatives in the grocery stores, right? We've actually made incredible progress. And think of 50 years from now, if maybe some of us are on our deathbed or already gone, do we want to look back and think of ourselves as someone who did something, spoke up, or kept quiet? If you're not vegan, how many more animals do you want to be exploited and killed for you? It's pretty black and white. And if you are vegans, humans have other animals speaking up for them. But the animals only have vegans, and most vegans don't speak up for them. So please think about that and do. And if not you, if not all of us here, then who? And if not today, when you leave here today, then when? Please, think of it. So this is just going to be a little video that I would like to share. It's only a minute on the dairy industry. All right, so ways to take action. Right now, you can get out your phones, and this QR code will take you to all the latest alerts regarding farmed animals. Some of them I've been doing and working on. And then over at the In Defense of Animals table, we have some other QR codes that will take you to the Thule Elk campaign, which our friend Jack over here is going to be giving a talk about. And then in November is World Vegan Month. We're going to be having an expert activist panel with Dr. Faraz Harsini, who I mentioned before, who's advocating veganism as a moral urgency across all of the universities in the country. Very impassioned human being and a friend, lovely person. So I highly recommend registering for that. And I'd just like to say that from here on out, please think of the animals, speak up for them, and until every goddamn cage is empty and every animal is liberated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leah. If there's some questions, we have some time for some questions or comments.
Veganism was taking off, but I've heard that Americans are eating more meat than they ever did.
I thought veganism was taking off, but now Americans are eating more meat than ever before.
That is a common thing that you'll hear other people say in order to minimize the progress that the movement has made. So don't pay attention to that, because that's what they said, back in the days of slavery. That's what they, 400 years, well, we've always done it this way. Nothing's going to ever change. More slaves are coming, and we're oppressing more humans. It's just that's just something that, of course, anybody who's not vegan, anybody who wants to continue doing what they're doing, is going to be saying to you to discourage you, right? So, no, we focus on the progress that we have made, and it turns out that most people don't realize, they talk about, oh, veganism is just like a white privilege thing, and that's a whole other subject. I'm not in a food desert. I'm not out, on the plains, talking to the Inuit tribe, insisting that they go vegan. If you live within, an area where you have access to a grocery store, you can go vegan. So just notice and pick up on the fact that when people say things like that, they're just trying to shut you up. Yes. Yes, thank you. Proposition 12, yes, that was in California. It was passed, and it was to ban gestation crates for mother pigs. So mother pigs in general in the industry are kept in these tiny, tiny crates throughout their entire pregnancy. And it did effectively ban it because enough people signed petitions, but it's really only given them a few more inches of space because they're still in farrowing crates, which are just slightly bigger. And in general, a lot of these gestation crates are fully still in operation because the big lie that we're not told is we don't realize there's virtually no oversight. There's no laws protecting these animals. So if they have an inspection, it's about once a year, and the producers, the animal ag businesses that are keeping these animals in these conditions, are given notice of when they're going to be inspected. So it's all kind of a little bit ridiculous. Yeah. Well, that's why I highly recommend everybody look up IP28 in Oregon. And that is the most far-reaching, visionary, and groundbreaking opportunity for animals. And it's to ban the abuse, neglect, forcible impregnation, and killing of animals, and to extend the rights that companion animals have to all of animals. So check that out. I think that is the biggest, most promising step that we have as far as legislation or as far as getting on the ballot. So please go to that, and please go to In Defense of Animals and check us out, because I'm going to be talking about that just next week. I have an entire blog about systemic change and Measure J in Sonoma County, and over in Denver, they're working on banning slaughterhouses. So keep all that in mind. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming and listening.
Thank you so much, Leah. We have another speaker, Jack Gescheit, in about 15 minutes. So hope to join you then. Bye.